Anselmus Cur Deus Homo. Book first. Chapter 18. Whether there will be more holy men than evil angels. Anselm. If the angels, before any of them fell, existed in that perfect number of which we have spoken, then men were only made to supply the place of the lost angels, and it is plain that their number will not be greater. But if that number were not found in all the angels together, then both the loss and the original deficiency must be made up from men, and more men will be chosen than there were fallen angels. And so we shall say that men were not made only to restore the diminished number, but also to complete the imperfect number. Also, which is the better theory, that angels were originally made perfect in number, or that they were not? Anselm. I will state my views. Also, I cannot ask more of you. Anselm. If man was created after the fall of evil angels, as some understand, the account in Genesis, I do not think that I can prove from this either of these suppositions positively. For it is possible, I think, that the angels should have been created perfect number, and that afterwards man can was created to complete the number when it had been lessened. And it is also possible that they were not perfect in number because God deferred completing the number, as he does even now, determining in his own time to create men. Wherefore, either God would only complete that which was not yet perfect, or if it were also diminished, he would restore it. But if the whole creation took place at once, and those days in which Moses appears to describe a successive creation are not to be understood like such days as ours, I cannot see how angels could have been created perfect in number. Since it were so, it seems to me that some, either men or angels, would fall immediately, else in heaven's empire there would be more than the complete number required. If therefore all things were created at one and at the same time, it should seem that angels and the first two human beings form an incomplete number, so that if no angel fell, the deficiency alone should be made up. But if any fell, the lost part should be restored, and that human nature, which had stood firm, and though weaker than that of angels, might, as it were, justify God, and put the devil to silence, if he were to attribute his fall to weakness. And in case human nature fell, much more would it justify God against the devil, and even against itself, because though though made far weaker and of mortal race, yet in the elect it will rise from its weakness to an estate exalted above that from which the devil was fallen, as far as good angels, to whom it should be equal, were advanced after the overthrow of the evil, because they they persevere. For these reasons, I am rather inclined to the belief that there was not originally that complete number of angels necessary to perfect the celestial state, since, supposing that men and angels were not created at the same time, this is possible, and it would follow of necessity if they were created at the same time, which is the opinion of the majority, because we read, "He who lived forever created all things at once." But if the perfection of the created universe is to be understood as consisting not so much in the number of beings as in the number of natures, it follows that the human nature was either made to consummate this perfection, or that it was superfluous, which we should not dare affirm of the nature of the smallest reptile. Wherefore, then, it was made for itself, and not merely to restore the number of beings possessing another. From which it is plain that, even had no angel fallen, men would yet have had their place in the celestial kingdom, and hence it follows that there was not a perfect number of angels, even before a part fell. Otherwise, of necessity, some men or angels must fall, because it would be impossible that any should continue beyond the perfect number. Also, you have not labored in vain. And some, there is also, as I think, another reason which supports, in no small degree, the opinion that angels were not created perfect in number. Also, let us hear it. Answer. Had a perfect number of angels been created, and had men been made only to fill the place of the lost angels, it is plain that, had not some angels fallen from their happiness, man would never have been exalted to it. Boso, we are agreed. Answer. But if anyone shall ask, since they rejoice as much over the fall of angels as over their own exaltation, because the one can never take place without the other, how can they be justified in this unholy joy? Or how shall we say that angels are restored by the substitution of men, if they, the angels, would have remained free from this fault, had they not fallen? Feast, for rejoicing over the fall of others, we pray, cannot men be made free from this fault? Nay, how ought they to be happy with this fault? With what temerity then do we say that God neither wishes nor is able to make this substitution without this fault? Also, is not the case similar to that of the Gentiles who were called unto faith, because the Jews rejected it? Answer. No, for had the Jews all believed, yet the Gentiles would have been called. For in every nation he that feared God and worked righteousness, it is accepted of him. But since the Jews despised the apostles, this was the immediate occasion of their turning to the Gentiles. Boso, I see no way of opposing you. Answer. Whence does that joy which one has over another's fault seem to arise? Boso, whence, to be sure, but from the fact that each individual will be certain that, had not another fallen, he would never have attained the place where he now is. Answer. If then no one had this certainty, there would be no cause for one to rejoice over the doom of another. Also, so it appears. Answer. Seeing you that any one of them can have this certainty, if their numbers shall far exceed of those who fell. Also, I certainly cannot think that anyone would or ought to have it, for how can anyone know whether he were created to restore the part diminished, or to make up that which was not yet complete in the number necessary to constitute the state? But all are sure that they were made with a view to the perfection of the kingdom. Answer. If then there shall be larger number than that of the fallen angels, no one can or ought to know that he would not have attained this height but for another fall. Also, this is true. No one, Answer, no one, therefore, will have cause to rejoice over the perdition of another. Also, so it appears. Answer, since then we see that if there are more men elected than the number of fallen angels, the incongruity will not follow which must follow if there are not more than elected. And since it's possible that there should be anything incongruous in that celestial state, it becomes a necessary fact that angels were not made perfect in number, and that there will be more happy men than doomed angels. Boso, I see not how this can be denied. Anselm, I think that another reason can be brought to support this opinion. Boso, you ought then to present it. Anselm, we believe that the material substance of the world must be renewed, and that this will not take place until the number of the elect is accomplished, and that happy kingdom made perfect, and that after its completion there will be no charge. Whence it may be reasoned that God planned to perfect both at the same time, in order that the inferior nature, which knew not God, might not be perfected before the superior nature which ought to enjoy God, and that the inferior, being renewed at the same time with the superior, might, as it were, rejoice in its own way. Yes, the Deificator, having so glorious and excellent a consummation, might delight in its Creator and in itself, in turn, rejoicing always after its own manner, so that what the will effects in the rational nature of its own accord, this also the irrational Creator naturally shows by the arrangement of God, for we are wont to rejoice in the fame of our ancestors, as when on the birthdays of the saints we delight with the festive triumph, rejoicing in the honor. And this opinion derives support from the fact that, had not Adam sinned, God might yet put off the completion of that state until the number of men which he designed should be made out, and men themselves be transferred, so to speak, to an immortal state of bodily existence. For they had in paradise a kind of immortality, that is, a power not to die. But since it was possible for them to die, this power was not immortal, as if indeed they had not been capable of death. But if God determined to bring to perfection at one and the same time the intelligent and happy state and this earthly and irrational nature, it follows that either the state was not complete in the number of angels before the destruction of the weak, but God was waiting to complete it by men, when he should renovate the material nature of the world, of that if the kingdom were perfect in number, it was not in confirmation, and its confirmation must be deferred, even had no one sinned, until that renewal of the world to which we look forward, or that if that confirmation should not be deferred so long, the renewal of the world would be hastened, that both events might take place at the same time, but that God should determine to renew the world immediately after it was made, and to destroy in the very beginning those things which after this renewal would not exist. Before any creation appeared, for the creation is simply absurd. If therefore follows that, since angels were not complete in number, their confirmation will not be long deferred on this account, because the renewal of a world just created ought soon to take place, for this is not fitting. But that God should wish to put off the confirmation to the future renewing of the world seems improper, since he so quickly accomplished it in some, and since we know that in regard to our first parents, if they had not sinned as they did, he would have confirmed them, as well as the angels who preserve. For although not advanced to that equality with angels to which men were to attain, when the number taken for among them was complete, yet had they preserved their original holiness, so as not to have sinned too tempted, they would have been conformed with all their offspring, so as never more to sin, just as, when they were conquered by sin, they were so weakened as to be unable in themselves to live afterwards without sinning. For who dares affirm the weakness is more powerful to bind a man in servitude after he had yielded to it at the first persuasion, then holiness to confirm him in a liberty when he has adhered to it in the original trial? For as human nature being included in the person of our first parents was in them wholly won over to sin, with the single exception of that man whom God, being able to create from a virgin, was equally able to save from the sin of Adam. So had they not sinned, human nature, human nature would have wholly conquered. If therefore remains that the celestial state was not complete in its original number, but must be completed from among men. For so, what you say seems what you say seems very reasonable to me. But what shall we think of that which is said respecting God? He had appointed to the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel, which some, because of the expression children of Israel, is founded sometimes angels of God, explained in this way, that the number of elect men taken should be understood as equal to that of good angels. Anselm, this is not discordant with the previous opinion, if it be not certain that the number of angels who fell is the same as that of those who stood, and if there be more elect than evil angels, an elect man must needs be substituted for the evil angels, and it is possible for them to equal the number of the good angels. In that case, there will be more holy men than evil angels. But remember with what condition I undertook to answer your inquiry, Faith, that if I say nothing not upheld by greater authority, though I appear to demonstrate it, yet it should be received with no further certainty than as my opinion for the present, until God makes some clearer revelation to me. For I am sure that if I say anything which plainly opposes the Holy Scriptures, it is false, and if I am aware of it, I will not longer hold it. But if, with regard to subjects in which opposite opinions may be heard without hazard, as that, for instance, which we now discuss, for if we know for if we know not whether there are to be more men elected than the number of the lost angels, and incline to the either of these opinions rather than the other, I think the soul is not in danger. I say in cases like this, we explain the divine words so as to make them favor different sides, and there is nowhere found anything to decide beyond doubt. The opinion that sound be held, I think there is no censure to be given. As to the passage which you spoke of, he had determined the bounds of the people or tribes according to the number of the angels of God, or as another translation has it, according to the number of the children of Israel. Since both translations either since both translations either mean the same thing or are different without contradicting each other, we understood that good angels only are intended by both expressions, angels of God and children of Israel, and that elect men not only are meant, but that both angels and elect men are included, even the whole celestial kingdom, or by angel of God might be understood holy angels only, and by children of Israel holy men only, or by children of Israel angels only, and by angel of God holy men. If good angels are intended in both expressions, it is the same as if only angels of God had been used. But if the whole heavenly kingdom were included, the meaning is that the people, that is the throng of elect men, if to be taken, or that there will be a people in this stage of existence until the appointed number of the kingdom, not yet completed, shall be made up from among men. But I do not but I do not know see why angels only, or even angels and holy together, are meant by the expression children of Israel. For it is not improper to call holy men children of Israel, as they are called sons of Abraham, and they can also properly be called angels of God, because they imitate the life of angels, and they are promised in heaven a likeness and equality with angels, and all who live only li, who live on lives only lives are angels of God. Therefore the confessors or martyrs are so called. For he who declares and bears witness to the truth, he is the messenger of God, that is his angels. That is his angel. If a weak man is called a devil, as our Lord says of Judas, because they are alike in malice, why should not a good man be called an angel? Because he follows holiness. Wherefore I think we may say that God had appointed the bound of the people according to the number of elect men, because men will elect, and there will be a natural increase among them, until the number of elect men is accomplished. And when that occurs, the birth of man, which takes place in his life, will cease. But if by angels of God we only understand holy angels, and by children of Israel only holy men, it may be explained in two ways. God had appointed the bounds of the people according to the number of angels of God, is either that so great a people, that is, so many men, will be taken as there are holy angels of God, or that the people will continue to exist upon earth until the number of angels is completed from among men. And I think there is no other possible method of explanation. He had appointed the bonds of the people according to the number of children of Israel. That is, that there will be continue to be a people in this stage of existence, as I said before, until the number of holy men is completed, and we infer from either translation as many men will be taken as there were angels who remain steadfast. Yet although lost angels must have taken the ranks filled by men, it does not follow that the number of lost angels was equal to that of those who preserved. But if anyone affirms this, he will have to find means of invalidating the reasons given above, which prove, I think, that there was not among angels before the fall that perfect number before mentioned, and that there are more men to be saved than the number of evil angels. Boso, I by no means regret that I urged you to these remarks about the angels, for it has not been for naught. Now let us return from our discussion.